Three Formula One drivers, and all three of them were robbed horribly. Lando Norris got choked out at Wembley, Charles Leclerc had his watch ripped off his wrist while signing autographs, Carlos Sainz walked out of his hotel and ended up running through Milan to catch the guy who just robbed him. Interestingly, every single one of them was wearing a Richard Mille. This is not a coincidence, this is a pattern. And once you understand why Richard Mille became the most stolen watch in Formula One history, the entire story starts looking completely different. Now, before we get into the robberies, you need to understand exactly what these thieves are chasing, because most people have no idea what a Richard Mille actually is. Richard Mille is not a centuries-old Swiss brand like Rolex or Patek Philippe. It's barely 2 decades old. And yet today, it generates an estimated 1.5 billion Swiss francs in annual revenue on fewer than 6,000 watches per year. Let that sink in. Rolex sells over 1 million watches a year. Richard Mille sells 6,000. Not just that, Richard Mille describes every watch as a racing machine on the wrist, and when you see the engineering inside one, that phrase feels completely accurate. Entry-level pieces start around $80,000. Limited editions routinely cross $500,000. The new Ferrari collaboration, launched in 2025, just 150 units, is priced at $1.5 million per watch. This is not a luxury brand, this is a different category of existence entirely. But the watch world is full of expensive brands, so why does Richard Mille keep attracting criminals specifically? The answer starts inside Formula One. Richard Mille entered Formula One in 2004, and that decision changed everything. The strategy was simple and completely brilliant. Instead of paying celebrities to wear the watches in ads, Richard Mille built watches specifically designed to survive the most extreme physical environments on Earth, and then put them on the athletes living inside those environments. Rafael Nadal wore his RM 2704 series during actual Grand Slam tennis matches. And when Ferrari signed Lewis Hamilton in 2025, Hamilton showed up to pre-season testing in Bahrain wearing a Richard Mille RM 7402 worth $603,000. Not as a photo shoot, just wearing it, naturally, like it was nothing. This is the genius of the Richard Mille formula. And that visibility created a very specific problem, because the watches that became famous inside Formula One also became the most recognizable luxury items in the world, worn openly, publicly and constantly, which made them a target. The first major alarm bell rang at Wembley Stadium in July 2021. England had just lost the Euro 2020 final to Italy on penalties. The crowd outside the stadium was chaotic, and McLaren's Lando Norris was making his way through the parking lot when everything went wrong. 2 men approached him. According to Norris's own statement to the police, one suspect slowly asked him about his car, then moved behind him, wrapped his right arm around Norris's neck and pulled him into a chokehold. While Norris was restrained, the second man ripped the Richard Mille prototype from his wrist. Gone. Just like that, a £140,000 watch gone in a minute. On top of that, it was one of only 5 in the world, a one-of-a-kind piece that Richard Mille had given Norris directly. It couldn't be replaced. It couldn't even be accurately valued, and in the chaos of the stadium crowd, the thieves vanished into the night. Norris was shaken, but here's the reality. He was 21 years old, he had just watched a football match, and he was wearing the same watch he wore everywhere, because that's what Richard Mille drivers do. And that exact comfort, wearing a watch worth hundreds of thousands of dollars like it's nothing, is precisely what makes them vulnerable. But Wembley was just the opening act. The real escalation happened in Italy. It was April 2022 when Charles Leclerc was leading the Formula One World Championship, and he was walking through the Tuscan city of Viareggio at 10 PM with his friends and trainer when a crowd started to form. Fans want autographs. Leclerc obliges, because that's who he is. And somewhere in that crowd, someone had already identified the target on his wrist. A thief slid the Richard Mille RM 6702 off Leclerc's wrist mid-autograph. By the time Leclerc realized what had happened, thieves fled on a scooter and an SUV. Leclerc didn't call security. He didn't wait for the police. He got in his Ferrari 488 Pista and chased them through the streets of Viareggio. He caught up with them in a parking lot, and then one of the thieves pulled out a knife. Leclerc backed off. The watch was gone. The stolen piece was a custom Richard Mille RM 6702 valued at $320,000. 4 suspects were eventually arrested in Naples a year later. But when police searched the hideout, Leclerc's watch wasn't there. Investigators believe it was sold on the black market for around €300,000 simply because no legitimate buyer would touch a watch that famous without provenance documentation. That details reveals something important. These thieves are not master criminals moving product through sophisticated networks. They're opportunists cashing in on recognizability, hoping to unload a famous stolen watch fast and willing to take pennies on the dollar to do it. Which raises the real question. If the stolen watches sell for a fraction of their value, why do the robberies keep happening? But that's not the end of the story yet. If you're enjoying this breakdown so far, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content on your watch list. And if Norris's story sounded unbelievable, wait until you hear what happened when thieves picked the wrong Formula 1 driver. It was September 3rd, 2023, when Carlos Sainz finished third at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. He was standing on the podium, still wearing his Ferrari race kit hours later when he walked out of the Armani Hotel in Milan. But here's where it gets interesting. 3 men have been waiting outside the hotel, they've been watching. 3 thieves, all aged between 18 and 20, steal his Richard Mille RM 6702 Alexander Zverev edition, a watch worth around $500,000. Then Sainz chases them out, on foot, through the streets of Milan, still in his Ferrari kit. His personal trainer runs alongside him. Bystanders who saw the robbery joined the chase. Sainz and his team run down all 3 suspects, one caught by Sainz himself, a second stopped on Via della Spiga by his manager, and a third taken down with help from other personnel. The Milan police arrive and make the arrests. Sainz posted on social media afterward and called a street robbery in Milan an unpleasant anecdote. That's F1 driver composure at a higher level. But these 3 incidents, Norris at Wembley, Leclerc in Viareggio and Sainz in Milan, raised a question that nobody in the watch world could ignore. What exactly happens when a thief gets away with a Richard Mille? Because unlike most luxury goods, every single Richard Mille carries professional provenance documentation. The brand knows exactly who owns each piece, when it was sold, and what its serial number is. The moment one gets stolen, the entire legitimate market closes around it instantly. And what happens next is darker than most people expect. So where do these watches actually go? Now this is the part of the story that most people never think about. Where do these watches actually go? The short answer is nowhere good and nowhere near their actual value. Leclerc's Richard Mille was reportedly sold for around €300,000 because no established dealer, auction house or serious collector will purchase a watch without documentation proving its legitimate ownership. The moment a watch is stolen, its paper trail dies, and a Richard Mille without provenance is essentially worthless to anyone playing by the rules. That forces stolen pieces into black market networks, where buyers pay a fraction of retail value to avoid scrutiny. The thieves get quick cash, the watch disappears into a private collection somewhere, locked away and never seen publicly again. Leclerc's watch was never recovered, even after 4 arrests. The network that absorbed it remains unknown. And the watches that do surface occasionally represent only a fraction of what gets stolen every year across Europe and the United States. And this is the real story behind Formula 1 stolen watches that ended on a thief's wrist. And somehow, despite all of it, the drivers keep wearing them, because a Richard Mille is not just a watch, it's a statement about who you are and what world you occupy. Now, if you enjoyed this wild ride, stay tuned with us because our next video is on Audemars Piguet, which just teamed up with Swatch to release a $400 pocket watch. So stay locked in, it only gets crazier from here.